Today we need to talk about Victor Wembanyama's latest injury update, and why the San Antonio Spurs are taking absolutely no chances with it. And honestly, they're right to move carefully here, because even though Wembanyama himself is apparently feeling fine, this is the exact type of injury where players feel okay long before their bodies are actually healed. And that's how small injuries turn into major ones. Let's break down what happened, what the Spurs are doing, why this injury matters, what it means long term, and why Spurs fans should actually feel relieved, but definitely not relaxed by the early news.
So here's the situation. In the Spurs' recent matchup against the Golden State Warriors, Victor Wembanyama left the game with what the team later confirmed was a left calf strain. The Spurs immediately sent him for imaging, and an MRI confirmed the diagnosis. According to team reporting, he's expected to miss at least 2 to 3 weeks, and probably a little more depending on how conservative the team decides to be. Now, the most important detail comes from ESPN's Mike C. Wright, who tweeted that Wembanyama is feeling fine. That's the key phrase here, feeling fine. No limp, no visible discomfort, nothing that gives the impression of something serious. And honestly, that's great news. Anytime you hear calf and big man in the same sentence, you worry. So hearing he feels good is a relief, but that's also where the danger is. Because calf strains, especially for big men, are notorious for giving players a false sense of security. A calf strain is one of the trickiest injuries in basketball. The reason is simple. Players can walk, jog, and shoot without pain pretty quickly. Daily movement feels normal, but explosive movement, sprinting, jumping, planting, changing direction, shot blocking, puts exponentially more stress on the calf. And that stress is exactly where re-injury happens. Most players feel fine way before their calf is structurally healed. That's why we've seen so many calf injuries in the NBA turn into something worse. Kevin Durant had a minor calf strain that ended in an Achilles tear. Other players have had the same pattern: strain, return too early, strain again, or worse. This is exactly why the Spurs aren't listening to Wemby saying he feels fine. This isn't about how the injury feels today, it's about how it responds to full-speed NBA activity. And that's a completely different level of load on the body. And for someone who is 7'4" with a unique frame, long levers, and enormous mobility demands, the risk multiplies. Let's be honest, the Spurs have no reason to rush anything. They're not playing for a playoff push in November. They're not desperate for wins. They're not even thinking about this season as the end goal. This season is about development, identity, and slowly building the perfect ecosystem around their generational star. So the moment the MRI showed a calf strain, and the moment Wembanyama said, "I feel fine," the Spurs made the smartest decision possible. Shut him down immediately, and for as long as necessary. And it fits San Antonio's DNA. The Spurs have always been one of the most forward-thinking, patient organizations in the league. They protected Tim Duncan. They protected Kawhi Leonard. They managed Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili with long-term thinking. This is nothing new. It's the Spurs way, but with Wembanyama, the stakes are even higher.
It's hard to overstate how unique Wembanyama is physically. He's tall, but he moves like a wing. He blocks shots like a rim protector, but plays like a guard. He covers more ground with 2 steps than most players do with 5. All of those things put extra stress on the lower body. For a player his size, the calf is not just a muscle. It's a shock absorber, a stabilizer, and part of the chain that protects the Achilles tendon. Think of the lower leg like a system. If one part isn't functioning perfectly, the rest has to compensate. And compensation leads to injury. So when fans hear he's fine, they might think he's close to returning. But the Spurs hear he's fine and think, perfect, he feels good. Now we can be even more cautious, because the absolute worst case scenario is Wemby pushing off the wrong way at the wrong time, trying to make a routine move and feeling something give. That's what San Antonio is determined to avoid.
Let's talk about the practical implications. The Spurs were starting to build some real momentum. Their young core was finding chemistry. They were off to one of their more promising starts in recent years. This included the franchise's first 5-0 start to the season, which was a feat that was never achieved at any point during the Tim Duncan era. Wembanyama's numbers were incredible. Around 26 points, nearly 13 rebounds, 4 assists, almost 4 blocks a night. He was dominating on both ends. Losing him for a couple of weeks is going to hurt the on-court product. Their defense will struggle. Their spacing changes. Their rim protection evaporates. Their entire identity shifts. But, and this is important, none of that matters as much as protecting the long-term health of their franchise cornerstone. The Spurs knew when they drafted Wembanyama that this was a 15-year plan, not a one-year sprint. They're not chasing a play-in spot. They're chasing dynasty potential. And that means if they need to hold him out 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, they will. They'll take all the criticism, all the questions, all the frustration from fans, as long as they know they're doing what's best for Wembanyama's body. For Wembanyama personally, this does matter, but in a good way. He's already been through one serious health scare last season with a deep vein thrombosis issue, and he handled that incredibly well, both mentally and physically. This is different. This is a common basketball injury, not a rare medical condition, but it's another moment where he's learning what it means to take care of his body over an 82-game season. He's 21 years old and still adjusting to the NBA workload. He's still putting on muscle. He's still figuring out recovery, timing, and limits. And this is the kind of injury that teaches you patience. You can't rush a calf strain. You can't tough it out. You can't play through it. The body decides the timeline, not the player. So this is part of Wemby's growth as a superstar. Understanding the long game. Understanding how small injuries become big ones. Understanding that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is sit down and wait.
His return is not going to be instant. Even when he's cleared by doctors, expect a cautious ramp up. Light shooting, stretching and strengthening, movement drills, controlled lateral work, short bursts of sprinting, limited practice, then full 5-on-5, then a minute's restriction, then eventually full clearance. The Spurs aren't skipping a single step in that process, and they shouldn't. Let's end on this. The fact that Wembanyama says he feels fine is a very good sign. It likely means the strain is mild. It means there's no swelling, no significant tear, no lingering problems, and nothing that points to a deeper structural issue. It also suggests his body responded quickly to treatment, which is exactly what you want to see with a young star still adapting to NBA physical demands. This is not an Achilles situation. This is not a long-term injury. This is not something that defines the season or forces the Spurs into panic mode, but it is something that defines the Spurs' approach to Wembanyama. Long-term, patient, cautious, and smart. Because the reality is simple. Wembanyama is too important for the Spurs to gamble with. He's too valuable to risk over a few early season games. He's the future of the franchise, the future face of the league, and a once-in-a-generation athletic project. And the Spurs know that any injury involving the calf, Achilles, or lower leg needs to be treated with absolute seriousness. So yes, he feels fine. That's great. But the Spurs sitting him out is even better.
At the end of the day, this is bigger than a couple of missed games. This is about protecting a generational talent and ensuring his body is built to last for the next decade and beyond. The Spurs understand that every decision now, especially with injuries, shapes Wembanyama's long-term trajectory. And moments like this are where great organizations separate themselves, by choosing patience over pressure, long-term vision over short-term temptation, and making sure their superstar is healthy when it matters most. So what do you think? Do you agree with the Spurs being ultra cautious? Should Wemby sit out longer than the initial 2 to 3 week window? Or are people overreacting to what might be a minor strain? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more coverage on Wemby, the Spurs, and everything happening around the NBA.